This is day 6 of the February 94 7-day retreat in Springwater. We have talked a lot in meetings and in talks about the disturbance, sometimes a deep disturbance experienced when there is a rattling of the self-image. A quaking. It's been hit. It's been questioned. It's become shaky. For whatever reason, somebody saying something. Or losing a job. Maybe fearing the loss of a job. Losing a person one loves, has lived with. Losing one's residence. All of this we're identified with. Our family, our loved ones, our location, our country, people we live with. And loss of that is a severe blow to the self-image, to this seemingly permanent security in knowing what I am, or forever wanting to have that permanent ID. Because identification, knowing what I am, results in some sense of security, or a great sense of security. Pleasure, if it's a pleasurable identity, or a respected, famous identity, or conforming to one's ideals of what one should be, what one's parents have wanted one to be, and one has attained that. There can be pleasure in the identity and security. And when that changes due to circumstances, which are always bound to happen, then the turmoil, turbulence as one person called it, deep, one may not even know what's going on, but there's upset, anxiety, a feeling of lostness, insecurity, depression. The question which also comes up frequently in talking together is, I want to know what I shall do with my life, or what I should do with my life. Or the opposite of that. I don't know what to do with my life and the unsettledness of it. Is that also lack of firm identity? Or the thought which has come to people in this retreat, I have wasted my life. I have not done what I could have done, or should have done, or should be doing. Is that again identity lurking, lack of it, the lack of security of it, the expectation that that would bring safety, purpose, meaningfulness of living? I used to know a man was a famous man, well respected in his profession, acclaimed in his profession, with wife and family, a responsible father and husband. And there seemed to be no insecurity in his life about what he was. He exuded security. And then came retirement, the loss of the workplace, the loss of the work crew. Then he lost his wife. Then he got ill and needed to move to another town with one of his daughters. And when he got more ill and was told he would have to move to a hospital, he took his life. Earlier in his life, I had talked with him about doing meditation and always being interested in everything. He was interested in that too, to a degree. He wanted me to tell him about it. And when I did, he said, well, I'm too old for this, but you do it for me. But I can't and couldn't. You can't, or can you? Can you tell somebody what he really is and what he is not? Or does that remain abstract? Unless one begins to ponder this question deeply, seriously, oneself, questioning what one is. And in the beginning it may be quite verbal or intellectual. Of course I am a woman. My name, I was born of such and such parents, in such and such a town. People ask me when, maybe in meeting a German, knowing that I'm German, where were you born? And I say I was born in Berlin. And if that person was born in Berlin, then there is a spark in the eyes. But I don't know Berlin. I lived there for 3/4 of a year. In 1927, a few changes have taken place in Berlin since then. Kennedy, when he was in Berlin, he said, "Ich bin ein Berliner," to share the identity with the people, and it's politically wise to do that. But it doesn't make him, I don't know what a Berliner is, although there's a certain charm to the accent and to the spirit in Berlin. So I've heard, I've never been there. One time I traveled through on the way to Poland, relatively recently. My father was born in Berlin. He was very proud of it. He liked it, liked the humor of the Berlin people, the spirit. But it was all imagery. We find spirited people and dispirited people everywhere. Unless, of course, certain conditions of living, particularly living for I don't know how many years, 40 years, as an enclave in enemy territory, makes for a certain spunk of survivalism. And what about being born of certain parents? We could imagine, and since all of this stuff is imaginary right now, my parents are dead. I could imagine having been born of parents in Zulu, South Africa. I would be different than I am now, wouldn't I? Could have been born as the daughter of Nazis, I would have been different. And a hint of a thought like this occurred to me when I was a little girl. The memory is there. It can be evoked right now. I'm looking at a memory of walking in the street, holding the hand of either my mother or our maid, and a baby buggy passing me, and two eyes peeking over the rim of the buggy, looking at me. And the thought occurred, what if that was me? It could be me. And then those two eyes would see me walking the other direction. But it didn't do anything with it, but the thought came, the imagination, and the memory is still there. Maybe there was something that went with this thought, some kind of a joy or relief or something. I don't remember. Every time a baby is born, it could be me. Maybe it is. And every time someone dies, it's me. So, the identity is born of parents born in a town, in a country, in a social class. All of this heavily contributed to my feeling of identity, the social class. In school, you met up with people of other social classes. I could feel the difference between higher class and lower class children. My identity was quite defined. Of course, being half Jewish was an identity all its own. No one else in that class was half Jewish. It was a stick-out identity. Which could have been different had I been born of different parents. But this is what I thought I am. Although, what is half Jewishness? I clung to that for a long time. First a little bit ashamed, and then trying to gain something from it because there were people who were compassionate. And you could gain some caring or some sympathy. Then when the Americans conquered Leipzig, where I lived, you could gain a lot from that identity because that's what the Americans had come, at least so they said and thought, to liberate people from concentration camps. I was not in a concentration camp. They're very interested in meeting a half-Jewish person or a mixed family. So I can see where identity means gain and loss, gain of friends or loss of friends, and a firm something or other in the mind-body about the reality of it, not giving time to investigate what it really means to be all that, whether it is anything other than mind stuff. Of course, mind stuff influences behavior. Being born in a social class, one is taught how to hold the fork. In this country, I learned to hold it differently. I tend to accommodate to the way people are where I am. That was also one of my conditionings. So you are trained to behave in certain ways according to your identity. Growing up in Leipzig, the dialect was one that was not considered High German. It was considered one of the more vulgar dialects of Germany. My parents despised it. They didn't mind the Berlin accent, but they despised the accent that was spoken in Saxony. So we were well trained not to speak that way. Again, more solidification of the identity and looking down as more vulgar on those who spoke that dialect. Strange, isn't it? How we come to think that we are this or that. I have a picture of myself as a little girl with a boy's haircut. And my mother used to tell me that if people said to me, "Oh, look at this little boy," I would protest and say, "I'm not a boy, I'm a girl," and feel very adamant about it. I don't remember it. But having heard this so often, I sort of made it my own. But when we went skiing, learned how to ski later on, everybody who has a skiing outfit looks alike. I would take my hat off in a hut, and my hair was long. People said, "Oh, you're not a boy, you're a girl." And I liked the fact that they thought I was a boy. Somehow this changing identities happens. You wonder how it is to be the opposite sex. Look up to that, prefer that, and like it if people take you for that. Where does this all happen? It's in thought, it's in fantasy, it's in imagination. And the imagination produces the looks and behavior of our body. If I want to be a boy, this has been a passing fantasy, long ago past. But if I do want to look like a boy, I'll cut my hair like it, dress like it, behave like it. Our identity affects our looks and behavior so that it seems to be something very real. Professional people assume the air and the ambience of their profession. The thought, "I am this, I'm a doctor." I'm not saying it's so with everyone. Creates an ambience, a way of behaving. A good friend of mine who went through medical school and would tell me blow by blow for a while, or write me what was going on. She suffered a lot in medical school. She said, this is not only learning all the facts of bodies and medicine, it's a tough process of socialization, which I revolt against. How to behave as the future doctor, how to be and how not to be. So we exude what we want to be in our ambience and our behavior and our gestures, the way we carry ourselves and the way we talk, reflecting this image that is dear to us, that gives us a sense of security and good feelings, because we've talked about this many times during this retreat and others. Every thought is really neurotransmitters, chemicals, going from organ to muscles, to their respective receptors, and creating physical reactions and symptoms or states of being. Going to a Zen center wearing the robe was an incredible thing. At the beginning we didn't have robes, but you felt much more secure in your identity when you wore that robe with the long sleeves. And even better when you had a bib to put over it. Several people at the time when I started holding meetings there, told me how much it meant to them to wear this robe, that it helped a lot in their practice. Again, is it energy through identity? Momentum to work, to strive, ambition through identity to become the best, or one of the best, or at least a little bit better. Is that something that is palpable, what I'm talking about? Sometimes someone will say, I don't understand a thing you're talking about. It doesn't move me. I don't know what it is all about. But isn't this so for all of us? Having some investment in an identity, or many identities, or else feeling anxious because we have none, and feel somewhere, consciously or unconsciously, that we ought to have one. We ought to be something. Or are we sitting here free of that stuff? Free of the deep pressure of it, the often unconscious pressure of it. As one person said, only when it gets nicked, then the turbulence gives evidence of its presence. When we're criticized, slighted, insulted, compared, ignored. So what am I? I'm not satisfied with all my identities, my imagery. It's seen for what it is. It's imagery with consequential behavior. And it can change anytime. We started out losing a job, losing a family, losing one's location, one's country. Think of the thousands and millions of refugees right now. All, as it were, amputated people, totally amputated from their field of identity, which gave them their security and feeling of well-being. Temporarily, it's always subject to change at any time, because no state of life or being is in any way permanent or dependable. Not the job, not the location, not the family, not the profession, not the social class. People who were haves. We saw those pictures after the Iraqi invasion there and bombing. The Kurds fleeing into the mountains, and there were interviews. And these were not just quote-unquote refugees. These were doctors and poets and teachers. All there huddling together on the freezing mountainside. Afraid to go back, afraid to be killed. Not knowing what their future was going to be. Is one still clinging to one's identity, freezing on the hillside? Maybe. Dreams of being that doctor, that teacher? Maybe. Or sometimes such an immense crisis may, like a tremendous earthquake, shake all of that loose and wonder what we really are, fundamentally, basically, at root, in essence. All the identity stuff can go at any time. One can continue it in the fantasy and in fantasy keep living like a king even though one is in exile. Or the question surges up, what am I really, truly? In the midst of anxiety or insecurity, pain and loss, bereavement, or maybe just sitting here in this beautifully lit hall with these amazing flowers drooping from the balcony, plants, leaves, all of different shapes, different shades of green. What am I when there is no clinging to the imagery that is seen to be there, to the behavior that is seen to be triggered by the images, their hurt or their flattery? Is there something to this here that is not dependent or determined by any idea, thought, tradition? Imagination, which is all the past. And sitting here and asking this question, I don't mean like a mantra or a repetitive practice, but really wondering, in the midst of living in this world of constantly changing or lost identities, with their grief and suffering, or their temporary surges of well-being, what am I? What is this here, sitting here? There can be thoughts, there are thoughts, there's imagery, there are the corresponding physical reactions to the thoughts and images that can be seen. But what is this seeing? What is this awareness? Is that an identity? Is that what I am? See, we always want to be something. We want to add something to I am this or I am that. And then we feel a bit more satisfied temporarily. We may find some time to do some painting. We've done it, wanted to do it all our lives. Or some writing. Find some time to do it. Then, do I become a painter? Do I become a writer? The mind revels in thinking that way and creates energies by those thoughts. And something is lost in that because there has been a switch in importance. The joy of painting or writing something, giving way to the joy of being a writer. But maybe the motive was already, I want to paint because I need to be something. I got to tell my friends. They always ask, what are you doing? My husband went through this when he started retirement. It was really driving him nuts. Everybody asking, what are you doing now with yourself? And usually we had been to retirement parties of other retiring school principals, and they would say, oh, I will now do more folk dancing. Or traveling, or there was always something that these people were expected to say and that they were duly saying. It was almost embarrassing for him to say, I don't know, nothing, I'm not doing anything. Busy all the time, don't know with what. It's amazing. It was amazing to me at the time because he took early retirement. He had had it with inner schools, not with the work itself. He was a lovely teacher and school principal, very much loved by the children, by the teachers. But it was the inner city, a lot of racial tension at the time, and being fair at the time would spell trouble with the white parents and the white administration being accused of favoritism for blacks and things like that, and not playing the political game. So he retired, 55, and could no longer say, "I'm a school principal," when somebody asked him. But it didn't seem to bother him. At least he didn't give any evidence of it. I don't think it bothered him. So what's our essence? Taking away all the extras and the dependency on it, and the good energies temporarily produced, or the troubles temporarily produced. What are we? Here and now. Not taking refuge in I'm this or I'm that. Seeing that as idea, image, powerfully active to create good feelings or sorrow, anxiety, conflict. We've talked every day and say it again right now. Can we just be here in all simplicity without being or becoming anything? It's maybe hard to fathom what it would mean to be nothing. Although, if this is fathomed only, then one becomes nothing and there's a new identity, which is in accordance with Buddhism or whatever. It gets support. So is that a neat question? What it means to be nothing? And to see the groping of the tentacles for something all the time. People tell it to me, and I know it myself. Doing something and immediately thought, weaving some being out of this. I did poorly, or I did well, and becoming that well-doing or that poor doer. So one may get slowly wise to the machinations of thought. Always weaving the being this or being that or becoming that out of a stream of pure being, which is all of our essence. A stream of pure being, changing states, which are not separate from the changing states of the weather, the clouds, the trees, the grasses, the buds, the earth, the solar system, galaxies, universe. It's all one pure stream of being. Here, now, not in the future. The future is always here. And the past is here as memory and conditioning and habits. Here to be felt, seen, heard, and not woven into something other than what it is, which is unknowable. What this moment is, this moment of sheer pure being, is totally unknowable. until thought says, no, it's not unknowable, it's this, it's that, explains it, describes it, and makes something out of it. I'm not condemning that, I'm just describing it. Because there's a place for thought to do that. Does it ring a bell that this moment of being here in all simplicity is unknowable? It takes thought to start getting into motion, to reflect upon it, based on what it already knows and its expressions, to describe it. But then it's already the past, because thought takes time, but this moment is here without time. By the time thought has formulated, this moment is gone. Maybe I can't even see what I am, because there is no duality there. There's only being, which includes seeing, hearing, sensing, all the organs in unison, not separate from what is heard or felt. Someone had actually asked me, I remember now, would I devote this talk today to how will we take back what we have learned here, or what has happened here, in terms of stillness or insight or moments of really well-being or ill-being, whatever, into our daily life. But see, again, there's this daily life out there in the future. And it becomes a conceptual thing. This mind right now refuses to do that. This is our daily life. This is living momentarily. And if that is possible for moments at a time, tomorrow you'll have to see. We'll have to see. We'll have to see where we are every moment that we wake up. Will we wake up? I don't know. You have to see. If there's waking up, then there's clarity and action and speech and doing will come out of that. If there's no waking up, then action and doing and speaking will come out of our conditioned past, which is what I am, what I should be doing, and so forth. One person said, can some of this awareness and quietness be cultivated? Well, try, experiment with it. Or will you find some time tomorrow, what is tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday or Monday, to spend quietly with yourself, wondering what you are when you're nothing? This and this and this and this is all ideas. Will you find time, or will by that time you think, oh, I want to have some vacation from all of this? And plunge into anything but quiet awareness? I don't know. How serious does one take all this? And I don't mean by taking it seriously, sort of to stamp the serious business and now have a new identity. The serious meditator. Everything flows naturally from everything. And there can be waking up, and there is waking up. No one is doing it, it just happens to human beings. I don't know if it happens to the dolphins and whales. Do they wake up and are aware? They have such huge brains and such language and songs, beautiful songs, over miles and miles and miles. Just saw recently on a television program, lots of whales had beached themselves, and only one or two were still alive and savable. All the others were dead. I wondered about that. The deer, they seem so attentive to what their deer business is, but, but are they awake? Maybe they're blessed with not knowing that they're deer. Because they may want to become elks or moose. Two cartoons come to mind. I mentioned it probably in the last retreat. Maybe it wasn't here. About the bird watchers studying their books and looking at two birds on the branch, and one of the birds flying over and sitting on the shoulder of the bird watcher and reading the book too. Flying back to the branch and saying, "Hey, we're woodpeckers." Oh, this nice cartoon, I still have it someplace in the meeting room. A mass of black and white penguins, mass of them. And one of them waving the wing and saying, "I gotta be me." I think we'll end here for today. Couldn't improve on it.